She's an author and playwright, amongst other things. Devin Parrish, welcome to Lamps Lab.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I just want to start from the early days about, I don't know, late 70s. Where did you grow up and spend a lot of time as a youth?
Okay. I was born in 1977. I was born back then it was still called General Hospital. It's now University Hospital. The UC, the whole University of Cincinnati Medical Center. So that's how old I am. I was born there before it even had the current name. Um, and at the time, Dad was, I think he hadn't gone back to art school yet, but was kind of in the middle of getting back to art school. And he lived in Clifton, which was in that same area. So I pretty much, my early years were Clifton, Lockland, Ohio for a little bit, um, Hamilton briefly, but mostly like Glendale, Springdale. Um, yeah, Glendale, Springdale. I'd say Springdale the most was early childhood. Um, and then like elementary was Glendale. I went to Glendale Elementary. And we lived in the historically black neighborhood of Hollydale when I went to Glendale Elementary, which was it was kind of walking distance, not safe walking distance because there were no sidewalks, but that's where we lived for my first grade year. And then Dad got a job in Denver at Rocky Mountain News, which doesn't exist anymore. He was an illustrator there. And we moved clear across the country, didn't know anybody. And that was second and third grade with my older sister. My mom was married before my dad. So my sister from that first marriage, Kathy, she came with us to Denver. And then we moved back to Cincinnati. So that was like for elementary years, it was mostly Springdale and then Denver and then back to Cincinnati. And then sixth grade was when we moved to Indiana. So like pre-K through six, which in Indiana was the beginning of middle school.
Mhm.
Um, so it's basically Ohio, Colorado, Indiana, and then back to Ohio.
Okay. And what sorts of things were you interested in as a child, as a youth?
Everything. And thankfully, I had parents who really encouraged my creativity. So because dad was an artist, I was really into art. I was into all forms of art: sculpture, painting, drawing, sketching, watercolors. I just, I dabbled in all forms of art and not just in school, because I also had really good art teachers growing up that really encouraged my creativity. And then my parents, sometimes you'll see where a parent will have their child's drawing like on the refrigerator with a magnet or something. But dad really made a big deal out of my paintings. Like he would get like frames and he would mount them and hang them up,
Mhm.
like next to something he did. So it gave me that sense of importance that what I was creating was good enough to be next to something he did on the wall or an adjacent wall. So that was great. I've always loved music. Both my parents are musicians. My mom was a gospel musician. She didn't make me take piano. She kind of saw that I had a bit of an interest, but that kind of fell off, and she didn't force me. Um, so I was always into music, singing, Dancing, there was a period where I was really into dancing. So middle school, especially, I got on the cheerleading squad, and I was big on like choreography. Like I choreographed a halftime show. It was great. And I was in show choir that same year, and I co-choreographed one of the show choir performances with two other girls that were in the choir. So that was great. It was so much fun. I really wanted to be like the next Paula Abdul. That was
Mm.
one of my goals at the time. I was like, she started off as a cheerleader, and now she's doing choreography. So I was on that same like career path of, okay, I'm starting off as a cheerleader, and hopefully that'll turn into choreography. Um, but yeah, all of the arts, all of them. I at least dabbled in all of the arts until I zeroed in on writing, and the writing became probably third grade was when I really started getting into writing, and that became like my main art form. I still did the other art forms, but not to the same level as the writing. It's
Mhm.
really, really stuck with me.
And at that time, what type of writing were you, I guess, focused on? Was it like prose or poetry, or what was kind of some of the things you were into?
I loved, and I still love, essays. So I was writing, whether it was essays for class, which was sort of my first, um, Mrs. Tish, my third grade teacher. This is when we lived in Denver. I did an interview with my sister Kathy, and just the feedback that I got from Mrs. Tish just kind of sparked something where she really enjoyed what I wrote after doing the interview.
Mhm.
And that's like the first thing I remember writing where there was a certain feeling that I had attached to it. And I wanted to keep doing it. And I loved the process of, and now that I'm thinking about it, it really was kind of like the early seeds of preparing me to be a journalist. I'm just like realizing that now talking to you that was like my first interview, um, and then writing a story after doing the interview, which was essentially an essay, um, and then writing more essays and even book reports. I enjoyed writing book reports. And poetry didn't really come until probably high school.
Mhm.
So like ninth or 10th grade, I started writing poetry. Part of that was just where I was creatively at the time. And, it's kind of angst ridden teen years where that's kind of like poems or, where you just release all of that. So that was like ninth, 10th grade. I was really into poetry. That actually lasted through maybe like freshman year of college. I found some old poems recently, just hilarious. Like I was so um I was just some of them are so over the top. This is
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
oh my pain and Um but yeah, so poetry came high school. High school was also when I started doing more journalism. I joined the school paper, and my whole world was, what the Fresh Prince say, flip, turn upside down. That's that's what happens in high school. Just I was like, wow, this is being able to tell these stories. It was just a really big deal.
Right, right. And I'm back up just a touch. Your parents, they had I think 21, 22 year age gap.
Yeah, 23.
And your dad's told me in one of his interviews that he had got a lot of flack for that at that time. And
Oh my.
You know Gladine. Uh, I had met her. I was probably 19 at the time I met her. I just got out of high school and met her. She came to Glendale to play for Mount Zion Baptist Church in Glendale. And so I met her and I fell in love with her. and it was a big deal because one, my family, my parents mainly, you know, and then people in the community, and I was good friends with the pastor of the church. I would spend a lot of time in his house and all this stuff, so they had these ideas about me and all this sort of stuff, but I fell in love with her, and it was real. I mean, and she got pregnant, and that's Devin. And so she gets pregnant, and that's a really big deal because the church and people, you know, we weren't married, all that stuff, and it was just a big deal. And then she's older than me and all of that. So I get to the point where it's like, when she told me she was pregnant, I was like, man, that's great. She's like, no, it's not. She said, but I said, yeah, it is. I told her, I said, you know, it is. I said, I love you. And I said, I'm going to be here for it. Well, I didn't know at that time. And that's why now I feel so empowered in my own life because, you know, you go through a lot of stuff when you're younger. It prepares you for later in life. You may not understand it and stuff, but I told her I was committed to her, but then I didn't see the wrath of all these people who said they love me. Now suddenly they have this problem. It's like, I'm just in love. Like, can't y'all accept that? Because we had to get away. It was about to break me down. And we lived with Lena in the projects over there on Welliver. 816 Welliver. We was over there, and we were just in there in survival mode, man, because, you know, we had been cast out from the community, and Lena said, you know, you'll come and stay with me, and then so that's where it went.
I'm wondering, I know after you were born, is that something you noticed, like the age difference between them, or you know, anything like that? And then obviously as an adult person, what you think about it as a adult now?
Absolutely, I noticed it. And you know, when they're your parents, it's normal to you. Like, you don't know it's a problem until you are around your parents and you hear people gossiping and stuff.
Right.
But thankfully, they always prepared me for that, you know, so I always knew there was a significant age difference. And I realize now that I greatly benefited from that because mom was silent generation, dad's boomer. And those differences, because they both weren't mentally of their generation. They were very much like youthful, even within their generations. So they didn't necessarily have the mindset of especially mom. Mom was way beyond like her, even the music that she enjoyed was it was of her time, but also she loved whatever younger people were listening to, whatever the trends were. She was really into like Miami bass music, like Uncle Luke
Oh.
and Two Live Crew. Like she loved the percussion, and she was really into that. But I definitely benefited from their age gap because even though there was a significant difference, they still kind of their openness and their mentality about certain things overlapped in many ways. We discussed things that were going on in the world. I could express my opinion about different things and not brace myself for punishment or, you know, that old mentality of, you know, shut up when you hear grown folks talking. And I didn't grow up with that. I had a lot of freedom of not just artistic expression, but expression of my opinions, my thoughts, even things that I was discovering on my own. I could bring it to them, and then they would offer their perspectives from their generational standpoint.
Mhm.
And it was great. It was, I mean, the difficulties of their age differences were very apparent, but even like things like I was just telling some friends of mine recently where especially when I was in middle school and my friends would have like a crush on my dad or something, and they'd show up, mom and dad would show up to something at school, and this was before they knew my parents, but it'd be like, is that your grandma? And I'm like, no, it's my mom. That's your dad? That's your dad? That's your mom? A lot of that.
We walked it out, like right in the face of people, and that was the time. It wasn't really hard for me, or it wasn't really hard for her, because, like, if you love somebody, it ain't, and you really know that, a lot of stuff doesn't matter. But it does when you have to deal with people who don't understand or don't respect it or any of that sort of stuff. So I think everybody's kind of blown away about it as Devin was starting to grow up and all of that, and they couldn't kind of put together that she was older than me and she had 3 kids, and here I am. I have a great relationship with them, but I wasn't trying to be their dad or anything. But
Once they got to know my parents, it was just like they didn't care anymore. They didn't think about it anymore.
Right.
But yeah, I benefited. I see it. Even the older I get, the more I see it as a benefit to just my perspective on so many things.
Right. Well, your mom was a close friend with my grandmother, and I remember whenever she would come to Israel, a lot of times she would bring just a huge plastic bag of change,
Yeah.
and she would give it to me, and it's like she had been collecting this change for I don't know how long, but she would always give it to me, and I was like, wow, thank you, and
Oh.
I just wonder, was that just the type of person she was, nice to wanting to give things away for really no apparent reason, but every time I could count on if I saw her walking to church, she was gonna pull out a bag of change. And
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you for sharing. I always love when people share memories about mom. I really appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, that was mom. Like, very generous, always thinking about people. Just even if it was I haven't seen so and so in a while. Let me call and see if they're okay. Or I can even remember her uh, making, when I lived in Atlanta, there was one time I was going back. It was a holiday or something, and I just very casually mentioned that a coworker of mine loved German chocolate cake, and she was complaining about how she couldn't find a good German chocolate cake in Atlanta. I just very like casually said that to mom, and it was like the day before I was headed back to Atlanta. She made a German chocolate cake for this coworker that she had never met. She just heard me, casually talking about that. I mean, it was a whole cake. It was a whole cake.
wow,
And like she made just cookies for me to take for my other coworkers. So that's just, she was always like that, always thinking about like, what am I gonna do with all this change? It's like
right,
I'm not gonna use it, but yeah, even like snacks she had in her car, she called them her diabetes snacks, but it was like it was really for like whoever randomly, wanted some candy, or she had like Mentos and bags of chips and
Mm.
just all kinds of, it's like, hey, take this, Yeah, that's how she was all the time.
Wow, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And my whole life, she was that way. Yeah.
right. And you mentioned your sister, uh, Kathy Y. Wilson.
Yeah.
Uh, she was a popular writer in this area and Cincinnati area and beyond.
Hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about Kathy and some of the things she used to do?
Oh, um, Kathy was one of the biggest influences on even my early thought process. She she's someone else who, even though we're both writers, we didn't have the same path in our writing.
Mhm.
Um, but my biggest influence with Kathy was just our time together, just the two of us, and it was a lot. Um, from being silly and singing in the car to her taking me places with her that a lot of people would consider dangerous. But it's just like, hey, I'm going to this record store or whatever. I've told this story before, but when we lived in Denver, Kathy found the coolest stores in the most dangerous parts of town. So it would be like this one record store that she loved. The parking lot would be full of like used needles, used hypodermic needles. And like she'd be like, watch your step, or like she'd pick me up or something, or so I wouldn't step on them or and then all the music was behind these locked glass doors. So it was just like but she would take me with her to just experience life. And it was never like I didn't feel like it was premeditated or anything. It's just like, oh, Devin's here, Devin's with me. I'm headed to such and such. I'll just bring her with me. I mean, everywhere from concerts to um, Saturday was the this past Saturday was the 3-year anniversary of her death. And I saw a reel on Instagram that had me hollering because it was these two women that were it was basically a skit, but they were imitating the way they act at funerals, and it reminded me of me and Kathy at funerals. It was so funny. um, but just all those experiences, and learning the most that I learned from her was just to take yourself wherever you go, be yourself wherever you are. And she really encouraged me to do that. She and mom actually just beyond both really encouraged me to just be who I am in all that I do,
Mm.
just be myself, whatever I do. And it was never, I noticed that you're into such and such. You should really think about pursuing it. It was just, okay, that's what you're into now. Okay, how can I support you in that? How can I encourage you in that?
Right.
But she was I would say she was probably my first best friend,
Mhm.
and probably one of the greatest best friends I've ever had, ever will have. So it was just, there's so much of my life and so many of my life stories that include Kathy.
Mhm.
And even before I like got my driver's license, it was just her taking me all the places with her.
That's great.
Mm.
So I want to go to your post-secondary education, which you've done quite a bit of. So just give us a rundown, kind of after high school. Um, where'd you go and pursuing education and things like that?
Oh goodness. Um, I make a joke that I hate school, but I keep going back.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm starting to understand more of why that is. College, like undergrad, so the first school I went to was a small private women's college in Frederick, Maryland. The name of the school is called Hood College.
Mm.
And the Hood was named, I think the woman's name was Margaret Hood or something. But every time you said Hood College, people would laugh. And it's like, this school was the opposite of Hood, like complete opposite, which is why I transferred, because it was just so stuffy. And I basically went because I got the biggest financial package help from them. But that wasn't enough to keep me there. It just, I couldn't do it. I barely made it through the year. I wanted to transfer after the first semester.
Mhm.
But and then like one of my best friends transferred after the first semester because she was an interior design major and they ended her major, and so she left. I was like, well, like my best friend is gone. Like, why am I still here?
Mhm.
But it ended up being great. I actually took a dance class while I was there, and I took two dance classes while I was there. And the instructor for both those classes invited me to perform at she has like an end of the year dance recital for her students. And she invited me back, which is a really big deal because I wasn't like her other students. They had been in dance classes their entire lives. And I was not. I was not like classically trained or anything. And I think I was the only student that wasn't like trained that she invited back, and it was a really big deal. Um, that was like the highlight. But I transferred to Northern Michigan University because my uncle Bill, which is my mom's youngest brother, he's also my favorite uncle.
Mhm.
He told me he retired from the Air Force in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So he had been telling me about Northern for years. And when I was looking for a place to transfer, he was like, why don't you just come up here, stay with me and your aunt for a little bit, establish residency so you can get the in state tuition and just transfer. You could start in the summer if you want. So that's what I did. And I finished my undergrad there. I made incredible friends while I was there. And it wasn't but like a handful of Black folks. It was just like the entire non-white community at Northern at that time. I think you put us all together, it was 1%. So it was just,
Wow.
uh, but those of us who knew each other, we were tight. We were really tight. And that's what made it a lot of fun because there were some racial challenges up there.
Mhm.
Um, but I think having Uncle Bill there and also like my on campus community was very helpful and is what really kept me there to finish. And I think that's what was missing from my first year, my freshman year.
Mhm.
And then I was fully into journalism. Like I got hired at CNN
Mhm.
about a year. Yeah, it was less than a year after I graduated from college. I got hired at CNN, and I was writing for, at the time, it was CNN Headline News, then it changed to HLN, and I don't even think HLN exists anymore. Um, and when I first started there, I was writing for, it was around 9/11. It was a little, maybe a couple months after 9/11 happened. And I was assigned, it was me and two other guys, and I was like the writer for they were doing these segments on Al Qaeda and they needed a writer. So I got hired and I was immediately thrown into that.
Mhm.
Uh, then I stayed there for like 10 and a half years. I was a segment producer. I was an associate producer. I was an editor, a writer. I did everything I wanted to do while I was there. And then I took a life changing trip to Ethiopia. And when I got back from that trip, I was like, I'm done with this. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's not this. I got to get out of here. Um, and then that's when I did the play.
Mhm.
And I did the play for like 2.5 years. Um, And then my sister Kathy got really sick. And then around that time, I was also in a relationship with a guy who lived in Cincinnati. So it was like the excuse for me to come back to Cincinnati, which I didn't think I would ever live here as an adult. But um, the relationship didn't last. Once I moved, it ended like 3 months after I moved back. But Kathy was really sick. So I'm mostly thankful that I got to spend those last years with her. Um, but then after I got laid off, the job that I got that actually brought me back here, um, I got laid off, and then I was kind of like, what do I want to do? And this was months before the pandemic happened, and I started applying to seminaries, different seminaries, and I got into, it's called United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities, based in Minnesota. And so I got into their biblical studies program. My entire master's program was during the pandemic. So I started like a couple of months before quarantine, and then I finished in spring of 2022.
Mm.
Um, and then one of the last conversations I had with my sister Kathy, I was wrestling with if I wanted to pursue a doctorate, and Kathy was like, "You have to, you have to do this because there are so many bad writers in academia. You have to do this. We need more good writers in academia."
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay. So started applying to a program. I got into the one I thought I wanted to get into, and like I was telling you before, I've transferred.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I want to get my doctorate in womanist theology. And the way I like to explain womanist theology is that for me, most of my experiences with who God is has come through Black women and the arts. So that's how I've experienced God for most of my life, and well, all of my life. So I really want to um, study that and make it more of a known field of study, because it's still kind of underground.
Yeah.
Not as underground as it used to be, but it's still kind of just sort of coming to the surface.
And I see you got on a silly shirt there,
Oh, yeah.
and Alice Walker is Alice Walker coined the womanist
Yes.
word, and is that your favorite author or
No. I'm so glad you know that. That's very impressive.
yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know that. That's a big deal.
yeah.
Um, no, she's not my favorite author.
Well, how do you feel about Alice Walker then, just as a writer and you know with the womanist things and like that?
Yeah, my favorite thing about her is her coining that term.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, I'm not the biggest fan of her writing,
Hmm.
but I really appreciate how one of the biggest things about her I appreciate is that she paid for the headstone for Zora Neale Hurston's grave, because Zora Neale Hurston died in complete poverty and was basically in I think that, what do they call it, like a pauper's cemetery or something. I think this what it
Yeah.
used to be called.
Hmm.
Um, so there wasn't even, she didn't even have a headstone. Um, and Alice Walker paid for her headstone. And I would say probably Zora Neale Hurston is probably she's at least top three. I tend to like nonfiction. So I tend to like Zora Neale Hurston's essays the most. Um, and I really relate to her on a personal level, just kind of like not fitting in, wanting to do a lot of different things and having many different kinds of interests and not fitting in, not even fitting into like academic programs, not even fitting in with the people that were part of the Harlem Renaissance. Like she didn't fit in with anybody. It's
Hmm.
like, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do with all these ideas? Um, but she's probably in my top three. And she's kind of one of the women I'm studying that I'm focusing a lot on. But Ida B. Wells is definitely in that top three for me as well. Um, but I'm mostly a big um, I love nonfiction and history, but I also love lyrics because I'm really into music. So lyrics mean a lot to me as well, and they always have. But yeah, Alice Walker's not. She's not on my,
Okay.
my top.
Mine neither. I was just curious because you had the shirt on, so I
Yeah,
wondered. But
yeah,
yeah, um, I want to go back. You kind of the Four Virgins play that you talked about briefly. How
yeah.
did that come about, and kind of what inspired you to write that, and then want to put it on as a play and travel around with it a little bit.
Yeah. That came after I left CNN. And I was being creative all the time. Every day I was just writing. And I had these conversations. There's one particular conversation I had with a friend of mine about just the ways our bodies were changing in our in our 30s at the time. And I was saying stuff and she was crying laughing. Like it was so, and I was just like, I was trying to remember what I was saying because I feel like something's coming out of this. And I just started writing the monologues as they would come to me.
Mm.
And I realized that the monologues didn't fit the same character. So I felt like they were four voices of one person. And then I started trying to figure out how would I stage this? Like, how would I stage this? And then how would I expose that this is one person with
Mm.
these different sides to her? But it was inspired by just conversations I was having with friends, and
Mm.
especially in the church where there is this impossible, especially for girls and women, it's this impossible purity standard that is placed on you at a very young age. And don't dress a certain way, don't tempt so and so. You
Mm.
can't walk around here with your knees exposed, and just all the don't wear your head down, and don't. So it was just a lot of those conversations, and you can't be too this, you can't be too that. You got to be attractive for your future husband. You got to do this and you got to do that. So it was like I always joked that they were the Four Virgins play was like outwardly virgins but inwardly freaks, because it's just like you're projecting one image but inside all this other stuff is going on. You're
Right.
engaging in sexting and just all of this other stuff that's the opposite of what you're supposed to represent. So I wanted to make fun of that. And
Right.
I was blown away by how many different kinds of people related to different parts of it. And it was just, I went completely broke doing that. I mean, I lost everything doing that play, but it was worth it. It
Mm.
was worth it. I connected with a lot of great people, a lot of great artists. A lot of them I'm still in touch with, some of the women that were performed in it. Um, so it was a great time. It was a wonderful time.
Great. And I recently read one of your essays. I believe it was fairly recent,
Yeah.
and I was wondering about a phrase that you have mentioned in there. And well, I know from reading the essay, but a woman like you. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yes.
And I wonder if you could tell the origins of the that's a phrase I guess you studied or thought about after that particular situation, that you
Yes.
realized other situations that kind of the same thing. So I wonder if you could talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, was that the one I was talking about? Was that wife immaterial? Was that
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
okay? Yeah. Um, it's just, and I heard it again recently. I forget who. Somebody said it recently that they were told, it was a woman who was talking about how she was told she was too smart, like you too smart.
Mm,
Um, and thankfully, I never got that from my parents. I never got, nothing was ever forced on me. Like, you have to get married, you have to have children. I didn't have that coming from my parents at all, ever.
mm,
They just wanted me to be a kind, decent human being. It was never, by this age, you need to be doing this and that age. But society, I kept hearing it my whole life, and especially as I started going to college, it was just, and it really smart people were telling me, were telling me this. And it was just like, wow, I really respect you because
yeah.
of your brain, and you saying something dumb to me.
Mm,
Uh, like this entire time, this great conversation we've been having, and the entire time, that's what you've had in the back of your mind is just like, she ain't never gonna get married. She too smart.
mm,
Like, wow, okay. Um, but I feel like the older I get, the happier I am with the decisions I made about my life.
mm,
And um, I, I don't know. It's not like I'm living my life to be an example. I don't think like that. I live the kind of life I want to live. And I also want to live a life that no one before me has lived before. Like, none of the women in my family have lived this life. So I take that very seriously as well. I know that I am as free as I am because there were so many women who made a lot of sacrifices for me to enjoy this freedom. And
mm.
in some ways, I feel like I'm paying tribute to them by living this life, whether it's pursuing my passions or going back to school, even though I hate it. Like, I know that what I'm doing would please like my mom or my sister. I think about it that way.
Mm.
Um, and that way I don't get so caught up in what people who don't even know me or people who don't keep in touch with me on a regular basis are thinking. I really, most of all, I really like who I am as a person.
And you mentioned pursuing for people that are pursuing whatever it may be. What kind of advice, you know, would you give people in that pursuit of whatever it is they are seeking?
I would say most of all, make sure that it's what you want, that you're not doing it because, and I know people are big on making money and, no sleep but not getting enough sleep leads to health problems. So, you're going to spend your money dealing with those health problems if you don't get good sleep. But just make sure you're not doing something because, you're third generation doing it, or whoever you look up to would want you to do that thing. Make sure it's what you want to do. And how you know it's what you want to do is that there are no other voices in your head talking to you about it. It's just you telling you to do it. That's how you know it's really what you want to do and that it's really what you should pursuing. You're not going to get a lot of encouragement, especially if it's something that's not predictable or you're doing something that people in your family or your friends haven't done. You're risk taking. Risk taking scares people. because everybody wants you to be secure and know where your next check is coming from, which is understandable. But sometimes that you still have that void, even when you know that your bills are paid. You can still have a void, because I've experienced the gamut. you know, I mean the entire. I could tell you about every stage, and but that's the biggest thing is just make sure that the voice in your head that's encouraging you to do it is your voice and not a choir of voices, your mom, your dad, your partner, or you think that, if you have children, you think this is something that your children are going to look up to you for, or they're going to admire or follow in your footsteps. None of that is guaranteed. So just make sure it's you doing it.
That's well said. Well, Devin, you've been a lot of places, did a lot of things, and I appreciate you for coming on here and sharing them here and with our audience. So hopefully, we can catch up with you more in the future.
Yes. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.